Join me as I try to survive a week in ancient Egypt with nothing but my wits and a few supplies. Start with a fascinating fact about daily life in ancient Egypt, such as their advanced technology or unique customs to grab viewers' attention. Introduce the concept of survival in ancient Egypt, highlighting its harsh environment and rich culture to set the stage for the discussion. Outline the central challenges one would face in ancient Egypt, such as extreme heat, scarce resources, and navigating. Social hierarchies dive into specific aspects like food sources, shelter, and social roles, exploring how these factors would impact survival in ancient Egypt. Present the most engaging insight or surprising fact that illustrates a critical survival strategy or adaptation used by ancient Egyptians. Summarize key points discussed and reflect on what it truly takes to survive in such an ancient civilization. Encourage viewers to comment on what aspect of ancient survival intrigued them most, and invite them to check out another related video on your channel. Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere that looks stunning on postcards, but is about to make your modern body cry for mercy. We're heading into ancient Egypt, not the glamorous movie set version, but the real, dusty, sun-scorched reality. And spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you're at it, drop a comment with your location and the current time. Let me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air hits you first. It's like stepping into an oven that has opinions about you personally. The sun isn't just shining, it's interrogating you. It's pouring heat down on your head as if asking, so, what makes you think you belong here? You squint up, but that only makes your eyes sting more, because the sky is a solid block of pale blue. No clouds, no shade, no mercy. You're standing on the edge of the Nile Valley, barefoot because, let's be honest, your modern sneakers didn't make the time jump. The sand under your feet isn't soft and beachy like Instagram promised. It's coarse, it's hot, and it's somehow inside your toes even though you just got here. The horizon ripples like it's made of liquid glass. Somewhere in the distance, a cluster of mud brick homes squats low to the ground, as if trying to hide from the sun. You can see figures moving their thin, quick shapes, like they know this heat is a predator, and standing still makes you prey. You take a breath, and it tastes like dust. Warm, papery dust, the kind that coats your tongue and makes you wonder if you'll ever feel cool water on your throat again. Spoiler, not anytime soon. Let's walk slowly, because if you start sprinting like an action hero, you're going to bake like bread in about 10 minutes. The breeze isn't a breeze. It's like someone opened an oven door in your face. Even your shadow feels heavy, dragging behind you like it doesn't want to play this game anymore. Now, here's the first big adjustment. Your entire daily rhythm is owned by this sun. You don't decide when to wake up, the sun does, people. He arrives with the first smear of light over the desert, because the heat will own the afternoon. That golden sunrise you love on your screensaver. It's just a ticking clock toward misery here. You glance down at your arms, already slick. Your skin glistens like you've been marinated. Ancient Egyptians, though they've adapted. They don't waste water on showers. They save it for drinking. Instead, they dust themselves with natron, this salty mineral mix that doubles as deodorant and soap. It dries, sweat, keeps bugs at bay, and probably tastes awful if you accidentally lick your arm. Meanwhile, you smell like confused time traveler within 15 minutes. And this is just the start. The sun keeps climbing, and with it comes the glare bouncing off every pale surface. Sand, mud brick, even the Nile in the distance, shimmering like a silver blade. Historians think average summer temperatures hit around 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but that's in the shade. And newsflash, there is no shade. Not unless you duck into a mud hut or crawl under a palm tree, and even then, it's like hiding inside a toaster. One lesser-known fact. People here shaved their heads, not for fashion, but for survival. Hair is a heat trap, and lice are the bonus prize. Men, women, even kids often went bald, then wore wigs when they wanted to look fancy. You're clinging to your modern hairstyle like it's an identity. But give it 2 days and you'll be begging for a razor dot, and speaking of things to beg for water. Your throat is already dry, and you glance toward the Nile, that long green ribbon through endless beige. That's life. But you don't just saunter over and chug. Water means risk hippos, crocs, parasites that see you as an Airbnb. People haul it in jars, guard it like treasure, and sometimes boil it, though that's a luxury of time and fuel. So you'll sip sparingly, then go right back to sweating it out. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptians actually enjoyed this climate or just tolerated it like a bad landlord. Did they find beauty in this blazing sameness, or did they quietly daydream of clouds and rain? Nobody left a diary entry titled *, "Dear me, it's too hot to live." But if they had, you'd sign your name under it today. The heat hums louder than any sound. Even the insects sound tired, buzzing slow and low around your ankles. Far off, someone shouting may be calling workers to the fields before the sun gets truly vicious. You think about joining them for a sense of belonging. But then you imagine bending over rows of crops under this sky, and your spine politely says, "No thanks, champ." This is the first reality check. Survival here isn't about fighting lions or dodging arrows. It's about enduring. Enduring heat that presses you flat day after day until you forget what it feels like to be cool. You want a C? Try waving a palm fan and hoping your wrist doesn't cramp. And as you take another slow step toward that cluster of homes, sweat trickling down your back, one thought keeps circling. *, this is only morning. Afternoon hasn't even shown up yet. The walk from the riverbank to the village seems short on paper, just a cluster of homes ahead. Roofs flat as if squinting against the sky. But halfway there, you discover something no postcard warns you about. Sand is not just under your feet. It's in the air, in your clothes, in your personal sense of dignity. At first, it's a light dusting like powdered sugar on a bad day. But the wind here, it's not gentle. It sweeps across the desert like a bored god flicking crumbs off his plate, and those crumbs sting. You pulled the edge of your linen well. It was linen a second ago. Now it's a chewable texture, and try to shield your face. Helps about as much as wearing sunglasses in a hurricane. Your teeth crunch. Yes, teeth. That sound isn't in your imagination. It's grit grinding on enamel. You spit, but the spit tastes worse. Welcome to a world where every exhale feels like exfoliation from the inside out. The village looms. Closer, mud brick walls in the color of toasted bread, patched and sunbaked. You pass a low wall topped with jar storage for grain, maybe water. A goat bleats behind it, unimpressed by your struggle. And as you step into the shade between two houses, shade that feels like a promotion from misery to mild discomfort, you glance down at your skin. Dust freckles everything. Your arms look like they've been dipped in cinnamon dot. Now, let's talk about clothes. Ancient Egyptians wore linen light. Yes, but also clingy once it's damp. And you are damp. Sweat glues fabric to your body like an unenthusiastic hug. The fibers trap sand so efficiently, you might as well be a human sandbag. People in this time don't complain, they expect this. For them, sand is just part of life, like taxes or awkward dinner conversations. Here's a fun fact. Sand even sneaks into bread. The grinding stones used to mill grain were rough, so tiny bits of grit mixed in. That means every meal here is like a gentle dental punishment. Archaeologists have found ancient skulls with teeth worn down to stubs, not from candy, but from breakfast. Imagine living in a world where your food and your floor share ingredients. Congratulations, you're in it. As you stand there, sweating and sandy, you catch sight of someone walking by, a woman balancing a jar on her head like it's no big deal. She nods politely, maybe wondering why you look like a confused sculpture. Behind her, kids dart past barefoot, laughing as if the ground isn't a skillet. They don't even flinch when sand kicks into their eyes. You, on the other hand, have blinked so much your eyelids feel like windshield wipers on dry glass. You try to rub your eyes, but your fingers are coated in, you guessed it, more sand. And that's the great cosmic joke here. The more you fight it, the deeper it claims you. Scratch your nose. Congratulations, now your nostrils are a sandbox. Wipe your forehead. Boom, grainy eyebrow garnish. Historians still wonder about something odd. Did Egyptians see sandstorms as disasters or just minor annoyances? Some writings suggest they treated them like bad traffic, something to wait out while muttering. Others hint at spiritual meaning, as if the gods themselves stirred the desert in warning. Either way, you have zero philosophical bandwidth for this debate because your ears are itching. And that's a clue. Sand has made its next move. And this is the part where humor turns cruel. Later tonight, when you lie down, you'll feel grit between your teeth, behind your knees. And in places polite people don't mention. You'll shake out your clothes, and they'll still pour sand like they've been moonlighting as hourglasses. Tomorrow, same story. The desert doesn't visit, it moves in. You glance toward the Nile again, shimmering in the distance, thinking maybe a dip could fix this. But then you remember the whole crocodile and parasite situation and decide you'll just embrace your new identity. Professional sand collector, this is survival here, not a single dramatic battle, but thousands of tiny skirmishes with particles too small to see yet relentless enough to define your life. And just when you think it can't get worse, the wind picks up again. Somewhere, a palm tree rattles like it's laughing at you. Ready for the kicker? Afternoon hasn't even started. You've made it to the village, but now the real panic hits. Your throat feels like sandpaper stapled to more sandpaper. There's this desperate craving crawling up from your chest, whispering water like it's the only word your brain knows anymore. And honestly, in ancient Egypt, it pretty much is the Nilo, the Nile. It looks close enough to taste. That long green ribbon winding through a sea of beige is why people live here at all. Without it, this whole place would be a sun-blasted graveyard. But before you sprint for that glittering water, here's your reality check. The Nile is generous. Yes, but she's also complicated. You don't just stroll down and sip like it's a decorative fountain in a mall. Water here is politics, survival, and sometimes roulette. You head toward the river anyway, moving past houses crouched low against the sun. Chickens scatter. Someone's pounding grain in a wooden bowl, rhythm steady as a heartbeat. And then, beyond the village edge, the earth changes. The sand gives way to a dark strip of siltrich, almost black. This is where life hugs the river. Tight crops spring up here like green exclamation points. Barley, emmer, wheat, maybe some flax. The smell of wet soil drifts on the heat like a faint promise of mercy. Finally, the Nile, wide, calm, glinting under the sun like a polished shield. You almost hear violins until you notice the surface wriggling, not ripples. Living things. Fish, sure, but also the kind of creatures documentaries politely call apex predators. Crocodiles bask like smug, toothy logs on the far bank. And don't forget hippos. Cute in cartoons, homicidal in real life. This river doesn't just nourish, it negotiates. Here's the deal. People fetch water with big clay jars, balancing them on heads like born acrobats. The water they take, it's muddy, silty, and crawling with invisible hitchhikers' parasites. Bacteria, things your immune system has never RSVP'd for. Ancient Egyptians didn't know about microbes, but they knew enough to strain, sometimes boil, and pray over what they drank. Those you're eyeballing it like asterisk, how bad could it be? Spoiler, really bad. And this is where the social script kicks in. Water isn't free. Oh, sure, the river's there for everyone. But getting it means labor hauling jars the size of toddlers in heat that makes your skin hum. If you're at the bottom of the social pyramid, congratulations, this is your side hustle forever. Meanwhile, the wealthy, they've got servants doing the Nile shuffle for them, bringing water back in jars sealed with clay plugs. The servant in this scenario, and your arms are already screaming. Quick historical fact: the Nile's annual flood was the calendar here. It swelled like clockwork every summer, dumping fertile silt on the fields. Miss the flood? Starvation? Too much flood. Homes gone. Ancient Egyptians didn't just respect the river, they worshipped it like a moody god with anger issues. Offerings. Prayers, songs, all to keep this liquid lifeline in a good mood. And yet, even with all that reverence, water scarcity wasn't some dramatic, "oh no, the well is dry" moment. It was this constant, law-grade anxiety. Enough for crops, enough for drinking. Enough to not make today the day you faint and never get up. You think about that as you kneel by the edge, cupping a little in your palm. It's warm. It smells faintly earthy, like wet clay. Your brain screams, yes. Your stomach mutters asterisk. You sure? Asterisk, you sip. Just the tiniest taste. It's not bad until you realize there's grit between your teeth. Again, because the Nile shares everything, including sand. That's strike two for Team Clean. Historians still puzzle over something. Did people here worry about waterborne sickness the way we obsess? Over germs now? Or did they just chalk illness up to angry gods and keep drinking? Some records suggest priests would bless water before rituals, as if prayers could double as purifiers. Maybe they did. Or maybe people just developed stomachs tougher than iron gates. You, on the other hand, have a modern digestive system currently filing a complaint. Oh gosh. So you pull back from the river, spitting discreetly, because even when you're stranded in time, pride exists. You glance at the people around you come. Methodical, scooping, balancing, walking in, realize this is their rhythm. Every drop they drink, every loaf they bake, every jar of beer they brew begins here. And that's when it hits you. Water isn't just hydration here. It's currency, chore, risk, and ritual. You wanted a simple sip. Welcome to an economy of sweat. You shoulder your imaginary jar and trudge back toward the village. Dust puffing around your feet, lips still dry, thinking about one chilling fact. Tomorrow, you'll do this again. And the next day, and the next. Because in this world, thirst is patient, and so is the river. You're back from the river. Thirst partially tamed, or maybe just lied to, but now another primitive alarm is blaring in your head. Hunger. And not the polite, modern, ooh, I could eat hunger. This is the deep, hollow, Rebecca kind. The one that turns every smell into a personal attack. The faint aroma of baking hits you first. It's warm, earthy, like toasted grain and smoke whispering through the dusty air. You follow it like a cartoon character floating on a scent trail. Here's the thing: in ancient Egypt, food isn't a surprise. It's not about culinary experiments or brunch menus that require footnotes. It's the same reliable duo, day in, day out, bread and beer. Those two are the power couple of survival carbs and calories in an unending loop. Meat, luxury, seasonal and fleeting. Spices, if you're lucky, a sprinkle. Basically, if you're dreaming of a cheeseburger, wake up and choose which carb texture you'd like for the next 40 years. You enter a small courtyard where a woman is kneeling beside a dome-shaped oven. It looks like an upside-down clay bowl with a hole cut at the top, smoke curling out, Q-shaping dough with quick, practiced hands-round loaves, thick and rustic. Nothing like your fluffy sandwich slices. These loaves are heavy, dense enough to double as paperweights or, in a pinch, self-defense weapons. One widely accepted fact: bread here wasn't refined or white. It was coarse, speckled with husks, and often laced with surprise. Sand and bits of grit from the grinding stones. So when you bite down, it's not just food, it's a light dental workout. Archaeologists have found skulls with teeth worn flat, cracked, or riddled with abscesses from a lifetime of chewing these rock-adjacent loaves. Your dentist would faint now for the beer, the other half of your new existence. Forget golden bubbles and frosty mugs. Egyptian beer is basically liquid bread. Thick, cloudy, sometimes sipped through a straw to avoid the sludge at the bottom. Mildly alcoholic, which helps sterilize things a little, and it's full of calories, which keeps you from collapsing in the fields. Think of it as a smoothie if the smoothie were brewed in a barn and came with sediment as a feature, not a bug. You get handed a cup. It's warm, because of course it is, and it smells vaguely sweet, like fermented grain with a hint of barnyard. Chic. You sip. Your brain tries to file the taste somewhere between oatmeal and disappointment. But after the first swallow, a weird thing happens. Relief. Not joy, not delight, just the quiet sense that maybe you won't keel over today. That's enough here. As you gnaw on a hunk of bread that threatens your dental future, you notice the rhythm around you. Kids munching smaller loaves, men carrying baskets of barley for brewing, women kneading dough in near silence. This isn't mealtime as entertainment. No scrolling TikTok, no podcasts, no cute latte art. Eating is fuel. Get it down. Keep moving. Repeat tomorrow. Lesser known fact: onions and garlic were big here, not for taste alone, but for strength. Workers on pyramid projects were famously rationed these as part of their pay. Imagine that sure paycheck is garlic. Suddenly, your office coffee perks don't seem so bad. You chew slower, your jaw already protesting, and wonder aloud, did they ever get bored? Historians aren't sure. Maybe monotony was invisible when survival was the only goal. Or maybe, like you, they stared at their bread some mornings and thought, if I see one more loaf, I'll throw myself in the Nile. There are no ancient Yelp reviews to confirm, but human nature suggests a sigh or two. Your belly starts to unknot a little. The food sits heavy, like ballast anchoring you to this strange rhythm of life. For a fleeting second, you almost feel proud. You did it 2-8 like an Egyptian. Then you look at the loaf in your hand, realize it's only half gone, and think, oh, there's still tomorrow. You glance at the clay jars lined up by the wall beer reserves. Grain stores, a future mapped in carbs, and understand the deeper truth. In this world, survival isn't about feasts or flavors. It's about the same bite, the same sip, again and again. Until you stop questioning and just chew. Somewhere beyond the walls, the sun climbs higher and your shadow shrinks to almost nothing. You swallow one last gritty mouthful, take a breath, and brace yourself. Because now that you've eaten, it's time for the part nobody romanticizes: work. And here, work isn't a desk. It's a battlefield between you and the earth. The bread settles like a brick in your stomach, and before you can even sigh in contentment or mild despairs, someone shouts, not angrily, but with the casual authority of someone who assumes you're part of this machine now. And guess what? You are. Because in ancient Egypt, idleness isn't cute. It's suspicious. If you're not eating or sleeping, you're working. You follow the sound toward the fields, feet dragging through fine dust that puffs like smoke at every step. Out there, the land is a long green strip along the Nile, as if someone spilled paint in an endless desert. Palm trees lean like tired sentinels, and between them stretch neat rows of crops: barley, myrrh, wheat, maybe some flax waving shyly in the breeze. The scene is almost beautiful until you notice the people bent double, backs shining with sweat, arms moving in endless repetition. That will be you in about 3 seconds. Here's the brutal truth. Your body is the tool. No machines, no shortcuts, no ergonomic anything. Just you, a wooden hoe, and soil that bakes into something between clay and spite under the sun. You grip the handle, and it feels wrong in your hands, too light yet too rough. The kind of texture that promises blisters. Before lunch, you jab at the earth. It resists. You jab again. It resists harder. The ground isn't your friend. It's an opponent who knows you skipped arm day. You start sweating in earnest now. That deep, rolling sweat that makes your clothes cling like damp paper towels. Sand sticks to everything again, turning you into a human sand sculpture. You bend, straighten, and realize your spine is drafting a resignation letter. Meanwhile, the locals, they move like water, bodies folding and unfolding with easy precision. Muscles carved by necessity. Here's your historical fact. Work here wasn't an 8-hour shift. It was sunrise to sunset, with breaks when the heat went from tough to, "Are you trying to kill me?" For farmers, that meant plowing, sowing, weeding, harvesting, read, harvesting, rinse, and repeat. For laborers on state projects like pyramids or temples, it was hauling stones the size of your existential dread. Either way, every day was a gym day, except the gym was trying to feed you to jackals. And yes, there was beer. Workers got daily rations, liquid bread for strength and morale. But here's the kicker. No matter how many swigs you take, it doesn't make the hole lighter or the sun less aggressive. It just makes you slightly buzzed while contemplating your life choices. Lesser known detail: kids worked too. Little hands picking weeds, scattering seeds, fetching water. Childhood as you know it's summer camps, cartoons, lazy Saturdays doesn't exist here, okay? If you're small, you're labor that fits in tight spaces. Cute, right? You pause, wiping. Sweat with the back of your hand and feel the sting of salt on raw skin. Your breath comes shallow, your head swims a little, and you glance toward the horizon where the air wobbles like a heat-drunk mirage. This is when you think, asterisk, what if I just stop? Asterisk, but stopping isn't a thing. The crops don't wait. The overseer doesn't wait. The system sure doesn't wait for your motivational slump. Historians still argue about something fascinating, where these massive state labor projects think pyramids done by slaves or by seasonal workers paid in rations. The evidence leans toward the latter: skilled workers, rotating crews, not the whip-cracking Hollywood nightmare. But before you feel better about that, remember what paid in rations means: more bread, more beer. Congratulations, you're rich in carbs. By midday, your hands are blistered. Your back hums with pain, and your modern brain is whispering mutiny. This is why your body wouldn't survive here. It's not the heat alone. It's not the sand. It's the relentless demand of a world where calories equal life and work is the only currency that matters. You glance at a man nearby, skin-baked bronze, his movements steady and uncomplaining. You want to ask him how he does it, but you already know the answer: practice, necessity, and the quiet knowledge that in this land, weakness isn't tragic hits terminal. The sun slides a little lower, shadows stretching like lazy cats, and for one glorious second, you think maybe it's time to rest. Then someone hands you a bundle of reeds and points toward the riverbank. Looks like you've just been promoted to basket duty.
Lucky you!
You drop the bundle of reeds and straighten up. You can call that stiff, groaning movement straightening. Every vertebra protests like it's on strike. The sun is dipping, finally softening its interrogation lamp glare. And for a fleeting moment, you imagine your day might be done. But no, there's another lesson waiting, and this one isn't about sweat. It's about status.c. You've spent the morning under the sky and the afternoon by the river. But now you're about to learn your place in a system that makes modern. Office hierarchies look like a cuddle party. Welcome to the social pyramid. It's not just a metaphor, it's real. And you're wedged so far at the bottom you can practically hear the earth's humming lullabies. The village hums with activity. As the air cools, you spot a cluster of men in clean linen, their robes crisp like fresh parchment. They stroll past, chatting in low voices, while a servant trails behind carrying jars of wine, actual wine. Not the barley sludge you gulped earlier, you know? Instantly, these guys aren't bending over crops. These guys own the crops. Landowners, tax collectors, maybe scribes, the rare breed who can write, and therefore control more than anyone with calloused hands ever could. Here's the official layout. At the peak, the pharaoh, living god, ultimate boss, wearer of crowns and cosmic significance. Below him, nobles and high priests, the VIP club with perks like gold jewelry and zero chance of being told to hoe the earth. Slide down a little and you hit scribes and officials, the pen wielders, the record keepers, the ones who can ruin you with a single stroke of ink. Then come skilled artisans, stonecutters, maybe a merchant or two if they've played their grain cards right. And then, well, then there's you, farmer, laborer, the human engine of this civilization. The 99% before that term was even invented. Here's a historical truth. Social mobility. Basically non-existent. You can't just work your way up like a motivational poster. Your birthrights, your script, and the ink is permanent. You're born a farmer. You die a farmer, hopefully not too soon. Because life expectancy here is like a short trial subscription, 35. If you're lucky, you watch as a tax collector inspects a grain store, flanked by guards who look like they've swallowed too many push-ups. The collector dips a stick into the jar, measures, nods. Taxes aren't money here. They're food, labor, goods, and they're not optional. If your yields low because the Nile was moody, too bad, you still owe, or you pay in sweat on some state project. Maybe that pyramid glinting in the distance needs another stone hauled. And guess who's available? You glance around, wondering if anyone ever complained. Historians suspect they did, but quietly, in whispers or coded songs. Open rebellion. Rare, risky, usually crushed like a bug on a temple wall. This is a society obsessed with order, balance, and keeping matha, cosmic harmony intact. Your personal comfort, not on the agenda. Lesser known detail, even your clothes mark your rank. The wealthy wear fine pleated linen that swishes like luxury whispers. Your tunic is practical, scratchy, and about 2 washes away from giving cane up entirely. Jewelry, unless you count that one string of beads some relative made at home. And wigs, the big, glossy wigs you see in museum cases, those are elite status symbols. Your head, either shaved or home to whatever critters you didn't successfully evict this morning. As the sky deepens into purple, you sit on a low wall and take in the hum of this rigid machine. Few kids chase each other, laughter skipping like pebbles. Somewhere, a flute trills, soft and haunting. For a heartbeat, you almost forget the grind. Then you see a servant kneeling to adjust a noble's sandal strap, and the reality check hits. Every smile here is framed by the bars of invisible class. Historians still argue over this. Did ordinary Egyptians feel crushed by this hierarchy? or did they accept it as natural law? Maybe both. Maybe when the river decides your harvest and the sun decides your schedule, the idea of questioning a human pyramid seems like yelling at the sky. And yet, you wonder if someone, somewhere, whispered at night, what if we climbed? But that's not your story. Your story is this. You're part of the foundation, the broad, sweating base that holds the glittering tip aloft. You think about that as you rise, brush sand off your knees, and trudge toward the smell of smoke curling from a hearth. Tomorrow, the same grind waits, and the day after. Because here, survival isn't just physical lit's obedience, woven into every breath. And as the stars begin to blink awake, you tilt your head back and wonder, do they look different from the bottom?
You've survived the heat, the sand, the thirst, the carbs, and the back-breaking work, but now, friend, the real game begins. Health, or more accurately, the lack of it. You think you know what fragile feels like because you once had the flu in winter and it ruined your Netflix queue. Cute. Here, one scratch, one bad sip, and you might as well start rehearsing your farewell to the living world. You wake before dawn to a sound you didn't expect. Coughing. Deep, chest-rattling coughs, echoing from the mud brick walls around you like distant drums. Someone nearby has a fever. You can almost feel it radiating through the night air. And suddenly, your stomach knots. Because medicine. Here, let's just say it's a cocktail of faith, guesswork, and ingredients you'd hesitate to sprinkle on a salad. You shuffle outside, rubbing your eyes, and a neighbor waves. His hand is wrapped in linen strips stained with something dark. Blood? Mud? Optimism? He smiles anyway, teeth worn down to tired nubs. You smile back, trying not to stare, but the thought slithers in. If that cut gets infected, spoiler, it probably will. Here's a hard truth. Germ theory? Centuries away. Microbes? They don't exist in anyone's mind yet. Illness isn't about hygiene, it's about gods, spirits. Maybe a curse tossed your way by that guy you didn't share beer with yesterday. People treat symptoms with honey, which, to be fair, has mild antiseptic properties, herbs, and spells that sound like bad poetry. Want an amulet to protect your throat? Sure. Does it work? Well, do you believe in magic? And let's not forget the dentist. If you thought bread was your friend, think again. All that sand-laced dough wears teeth down like an overzealous nail file. By your mid-20s, you're rocking molars that look like sad chalk. Abscesses were common, infections fatal. Ancient Egyptian dentistry existed. Yes, but picture this. A priest-dentist with a sharp flint tool, chanting prayers as he digs into your jaw. No anesthesia, just vibes. Lesser-known fact, fractures were actually treated with surprising skill. Splints made from reeds, linen bandages soaked in gum or resin, they knew how to set a bone. Which is impressive, considering they still thought. Your heartbeat was controlled by the stomach. You wander past a small shrine tucked against a wall, smoke curling from an incense burner. Someone's mumbling a prayer for a sick child inside. That's medicine here to ritual as remedy. The gods hold the scalpel, and your best bet is to keep them happy. You wonder if that worked often enough to give people hope, or if hope was just the only drug they had. Historians still debate this. How did Egyptians balance practical treatments with magic? Were spells just placebo with flair? Or did people truly believe every fever was divine judgment? Records suggest a mix recipes. For poultices alongside invocations to Isis or Sekhmet, goddess of plagues and protection. Picture your pharmacist doubling as an exorcist. That's the vibe. As you squat by the river to splash your face, a faint itch crawls up your ankle. A mosquito, just one. But here, one is enough. Malaria lurked along the Nile's marshy edges, along with bilharzia, a parasite that makes your blood its Airbnb. You stare at the ripple where you washed yesterday and wonder if something microscopic is already hitching a ride inside you, And here's the kicker. Life expectancy hovers around 30 to 35 years. Not because people just drop dead of old age, but because accidents, infections, childbirth, and random bad luck waited like hyenas. Make it past childhood? Congrats, you're durable, but don't get cocky. The universe here has teeth. By the time the sun edges up and the village stirs awake, you feel it in your bones, not illness, but the awareness of how thin the thread is. Every breath, every sip, every careless step could fray it. You adjust your tunic, glance at the hills beyond the fields, and wonder if immortality obsessed these people because mortality was always brushing their shoulders. You take another step, the ground crunching underfoot, and think, better watch where you land. Even the earth here feels loaded with risk.
You've handled the heat, the hunger, and the humble realization that you're basically a biological wheel in Egypt's big societal cart. But now, as the sun climbs higher and the day kicks into full swing, something sneaks up on you, not with a roar, but with a waft. A wall of scent so dense it feels like it has shape. Welcome to the olfactory truth of ancient life. It smells complicated. At first, it's subtle, just a note of warm earth baked under the sun, a faint sweetness from drying reeds. Not bad. Then the rest of it hits. Sweat, animal musk, smoke from dung fires curling lazily through the air. And beneath it all, something sharp and sour like laundry that gave up halfway through drying and decided to ferment instead. You wrinkle your nose. Congratulations, you just smelled the past. Here's the thing. Ancient Egypt didn't have deodorant aisles. Sure, they tried. People dabbed themselves with oils and pastes, sometimes perfumed with myrrh or cinnamon, if they could afford it. Natrona, salty, chalky mineraled as both soap and sweat sponge. But after hours of bending over fields in 100-degree heat, perfume is like throwing a rose into a bonfire and hoping it survives. You wander past a group of men hauling baskets of barley. Their skin gleams like polished bronze under streaks of dust. They smell like effortraw, human effort that clings, like an extra layer of clothing. And then a donkey lumbers by, tail flicking lazily. The wave of animal funk that follows. Immediate, aggressive, unforgettable. Donkeys, goats, cattle, they're everywhere here because they're survival tools. Which means their byproducts are everywhere too. And not just the kind you want in a milk jug. Speaking of byproducts, let's talk fuel. Firewood is scarce, so guess what people burn for cooking? Dried animal dung. Practical? Sure, but it perfumes the air with a tangy smokiness that makes your modern lungs think. I regret everything. Your eyes sting as a woman tosses a patty onto a small hearth, sparks leaping like angry fireflies. She hums as if the smell doesn't even register, because for her, it's background music for life. Quick historical fact: Egyptians loved fragrance. The wealthy practically bathed in it, literally melting cones of scented fat on their wigs. So the aroma would drip down their hair in slow perfume waterfalls. Picture that on a July afternoon. Tempted? No, thought so. Lesser known tidbit: the temples smelled better than homes. Why? Incense? Priests burned resins like frankincense and myrrh daily, clouding the sanctuaries in sweet smoke. It wasn't just aesthetic, it was spiritual, a way to please the gods. And maybe, just maybe, a way to mask the human stench of hundreds of sweaty worshippers pressed together during festivals. You step closer to the river, hoping for a clean breeze, but the Nile greets you with its own bouquet: algae, fish, and something that hints not screams, but hints at decay, because rivers here are highways for everything: trade goods, livestock, and yes, waste. You breathe shallowly, wishing for the crisp sting of hand sanitizer, and realizing that's about 4,000 years too far in the future. Historians still wonder, did people notice these smells the way you do? Or did their noses just tune out? Probably the latter. Modern olfactory privilege doesn't exist here. Life smells like what it is: alive, sweating, smoking, decaying, growing, and honestly, that's kind of poetic if you can stop gagging long enough to appreciate it. As dusk slides in, the air thickens even more. Fires flare for evening meals, their smoke curling upward like ghostly ribbons. Voices rise, laughter weaves through the glow, and for a moment, you forget the odor cocktail because the scene feels so intensely human. People talking, eating, living under the same stars, stars that somehow look cleaner than everything else on Earth. You tilt your head back, breathing through your mouth now like a desperate tourist, and think, maybe tomorrow I'll stop noticing. You won't, but the thought is cute.